For the next exercise, we are going to place a small bush here and understand how to deal with all the problems related to matching a photo onto a render, okay? So something like perspective, lighting, contrast, colors, and so on. But because we need to paint also some shadows, and this grass is pretty tall, you can also, if you want, import one of the other photos you have in the zip file for the vegetation. And for example, I'm going to use this one, which I like, and I'm dragging it inside the grass folder. And because the sun is coming from the right, I'm going to flip it horizontally immediately, and then I'm scaling it up and then bringing it up like this. And we can keep the mask we have right now. It doesn't matter. It looks nice. Probably we need a little bit of contrast because it's a different kind of lighting. It's a kind of it's a different photo from what we had before. So just a little bit of contrast maybe, and then we can start with placing an object on top of it, like here. Okay. And if you want to know, the file you have to open is in the same folder and is the plants one. So if you open it, you can see there's one different plant for each layer. And if you don't know how to look at the file like this on a floating windows, you need to go here, window, arrange, and then click on float in window, and then this single file will float over the PSD. And basically what you can do is you can check all the plants. You can say, okay, I like this one. You can control click on top of it, and so automatically the selection goes to that layer, and then you can just drag and drop this into the PSD file, and we can then continue with the post-production. And there's many things we need to fix in order to match this bush to the image. And we need to work on perspective, lighting, contrast, colors, shadows of the object on other objects, and then reflection of the object itself. Now, let's start with perspective, which is the most important and the most difficult to fix, because actually you cannot fix it. Perspective is not something you can cheat with. You cannot change the perspective of an image. So there's very few things you can do about it. The only thing you can do is to actually understand the perspective of the photo you have, like in this case, the bush, and then place it exactly where it belongs. And there's only a few spots where you can place this bush and match the perspective. So, but how can you understand the perspective of a new photo of something you want to add to your render? Well, there is a few things you can do. You can first of all watch it and understand and try to understand, because that's not simple, where the photo was taken from. And if I look at this bush here, I ask myself, do I see more of the top part or more of the bottom part? And I can answer, I can see more of the top part, which means that the camera was higher than the bush itself. And then I can ask myself, do I see more of the right part of it or more of the left part of it? And I can tell, I can see more of the right part of it. So the camera was on the right side of this bush, which means that this bush cannot be something somewhere like here or here, but the only place where this bush can be is something in somewhere here, because the camera height is basically on the horizon, okay? And so the bush should be lower than that and on the left, because I can see the right part of it. So, this is the area where this bush belongs to. And of course, I want probably to make it smaller or to squeeze it a little bit. I don't know. So first thing first, let's take the bush layer and convert to a smart object, because we don't want to lose any information, okay? If it's better for you, if it's easier for you to draw a bounding box of your shape, at least this is something you can try mentally, or even with the pen or with the line tool. I normally try to do this with the line tool to explain this part a little bit better. And here you can see this is the bounding box I draw on top of the bush, because I feel like this is the bounding box of this bush. And then basically what you can do is you can continue this line and see where those lines met, and they should met at the horizon if this bush is basically placed on the ground, okay, on any plane which is parallel to the ground, I would say. So let's say that this bush now is something I can rescale, and I don't know, I mean, this is part of the artistic, side of the choice. So this is where I want my bush to be. And of course, I will have some shadow and some light over the bush, but that's another problem, okay? So this is where I want the bush to be. And I can hide the bounding box, and of course the bush is inside a folder in the props folder, okay? So this is the starting point, and now we can handle things like lighting, contrast, and so on. Another exercise you can do to understand better the perspective, and this is gold, because when you want to even paint lighting more accurately on an object, it's very important to, at least mentally, you have to do this. But the first time could be a problem, could be difficult. So you can take a color. You can, I don't know, I normally pick strong yellow, and then I go for a new layer I will keep, and then a brush. Okay, just a simple brush. And then I kind of simplify the mesh I see here, okay? So we start with this bush because it's the easiest shape possible, is basically semi-sphere, okay? And if I have to simplify this mesh, I would say that the center, of it is going to be here. The part of, which is touching the ground, it's here. And then is basically like, the base is like a circle, something like that. And then on top here we have, our semi-sphere. And sorry for the bad drawing, but this is enough to understand, okay? And here we go for, the other side. So this is as a semi-sphere, placed on the ground. And it will help you in the future to understand where the light should touch it, where to paint shadows, how thick is the shadow which is going to be projected on the floor, on the ground. So I know this is don't underestimate this, because you can look at this semi-sphere and say, okay, this is easy to do, and maybe I can do it manually. But you should do the same exercise when it's about people, when it's about other type of objects. And my advice is always the same: try to simplify those shapes in like cylinders, boxes, spheres, cones, and stuff like that. Because if you do that mentally, if you do this as an exercise in your brain, it will immediately help you for everything, every other task you have to do. And another way to understand the perspective of an object is, of course, if you have the original photo. Okay, because if the original photo, let's say that you have the original photo of this bush, right? Or maybe let's say that you take it, and this is the frame. Okay, this is the frame you have of the picture. Let's say is a portrait photo. Okay, and you take it, and the bush is on this part of the picture, then that's the only way you can place that bush, because it's in that perspective in the original photo. And so it could only stay in the lower, left half of the picture. Of course, you can take it and flip it horizontally, and so you will get your bush on the other side. Yes, you can do it, but at least you know exactly where to place it. So guys, if you need something, I don't know, let's say that you have to place a bush on your bottom left part of the picture, and you don't have any texture, you don't have any photo, and you need to take your own photo. When you go outside with your camera, you already know that if this is the frame of the camera where you look into to take the picture, the bush should be there by default. Okay, don't make the mistake that everybody does. It's okay, I need a bush for this area of the image, and then they go out and here they have the crosshair of the camera, and they take the photo of the bush here in the center, because then the perspective is going to be wrong. The only way, the only position you can place that bush, then it's in the center of your image. And this is why when you have to place a person in your render, there's so many problems, because most of the time what you do is you go online and you download cut out people, but you don't know where they were in the frame of the picture. And most of the time when somebody take a picture of someone, you keep the guy or the girl in the center of your frame, because it's natural. It's okay, this is what you normally do by habits. But that's a problem, because then the only position of that person in your render, if you want to match it very well, it's in the center of your render. And most of the time you have people all around. You have people on the left, on the right, in the center, at different angles. And so you need to go out and take your own pictures, because then you have the freedom to click on the camera and snap the photo when someone probably, I don't know, is here on the left or here on the right. And so already that person, that guy or that girl will end up in the left part of your image. So be careful with photos you download on internet, because the perspective is the first big problem, and there's no way to cheat. There's no way to modify the photo and try to fix perspective. Okay, so don't lose any second trying to do that. Spend your time going out and take your own picture. You normally, what I do is I have the render and I print the render on paper. Okay, I print the render on paper. I go out, I put the camera on a tripod at the right height, because I know those values from the render engine. I know the focal length, I know the sun direction. And when I'm happy with the camera position, I place the render on paper in front of the camera, and so I know where people needs to be when I click on the camera. And it's not great to say, but one thing we do is to not press the camera button by ourselves, but we have an app on the iPhone, on the phone, and we take the picture with the app, because then there's no one behind the camera. And people, when there's somebody behind the camera, people tend to act in a weird way. They look into the camera, or maybe they refuse to be in the photo. Of course, you cannot show people's faces. You need to let them sign copyright paper if you need. But if they are on their back and you don't see their faces, it's okay. but at least you're not behind the camera taking the picture. You're taking the picture far away from the tripod with your phone. There's like some apps you can buy to maneuver the camera. And normally what I do also is to take more than one shot while people are moving in front of the camera, because then in Photoshop there is an option to take all the photos and merge them all together, and people will disappear automatically, because on Photoshop understand where those photos change. And so the only thing that doesn't change is, of course, the background, the environment. And that's a good trick, because then you have a clean environment, a clean background photo. You can put the 3D render on top of it, and then you already have all the people for your post-production, and they are with the right lighting, and so they will match perfectly. Okay, so this is a few tricks for you. And now we can see something about lighting.